A few days ago, I was at the gym and I hit a brutal chest and back workout. And believe me, when you can work out with your friends, it just hits different. You know what I'm talking about. It was genuinely really fun, right? However, as I was done with my stretching routine and I was about to make my way back home, I noticed something. See, every time that I come back from the gym, I have this route that I always tend to follow. You know how it is. I always go through this street, then I go through that street, this street, that street. But at the end of it, I always walk through this one mall in particular. And I remember ever since it launched, which was almost 10 years ago, there was a zoo shop. You know, like a pet store, right? Where you can buy dog food, cat toys, whatever, all this kind of stuff, right? And this was there ever since the place opened. As I mentioned, this was a very significant part of the whole mall, right? So when I was coming back home and I was walking past that store, I was surprised to see that it was closed. And I'm thinking to myself, what's happening? You know, I can still see that from the inside, there are still like dog food packs laying around. There's like cat toys and stuff. But the label is like off. You know, they took off the name, they put something new there instead. And I was just curious whether if they have like a new owner or are they rebranding or are they doing something new? I didn't really know, right? But one thing that I did notice was that there were a few workers standing in front of the shop, right? They were setting up some of the posters, you know, they were just preparing the place to launch again. And I just thought to myself, should I ask them what's going on, right? Because I used to buy toys from my cat from that place all the time, right? So I was curious whether they were going to close it or not. So as I was about to walk up to them, I get this thought. And I'm pretty sure we all had this thought in the back of our minds at one point or another. And it was simply the little devil that's sitting on your shoulder, right? Just telling you, why would you do that? Why would you walk up to these people? You know, you might end up embarrassing yourself. You might stutter. You might say something stupid and you might look like an idiot. Sounds familiar? What do you think I did once I started to get these thoughts in the back of my mind? What do you think I did? Did I take action upon them? Or did I still walk up to that person? What I did is I grabbed those negative thoughts, I turned them into a fucking ball, and I yeeted that shit out the door. What that means is as soon as I got the feeling that these thoughts are about to come into my head, I just like commanded my feet to walk up to that person. And it was just a simple question, right? Like I just asked them what are they gonna do with the store, right? And as soon as I got things going, it's like zero discomfort, you know? It was piss easy from that point on to run the conversation, right? But it was about the first step. And I quickly found out that the store's still gonna be open. And they're just, they're having a new owner or whatever, and they're giving it a new name, right? But the store's still there, and that's what matters. And as I was just a few meters away from my home, thinking about the exact interaction that I just had right now, I realized something. And as soon as I'm going to tell this to you, this is going to completely change your perspective. What I'm going to say might sound a little bit funny, but I kind of think that's the point. Imagine you're playing a video game. Imagine you are playing an open world game where you can run around the map, you can do whatever you want. But the catch is that you can't walk up to the NPCs. How are you supposed to learn anything about the game, whether if that's, you know, fucking creating a sword or like doing this skill, going on this mission? How are you supposed to get to all of that if you're not interacting with the people in the game? You know, that's the thought that I just kind of had in the back of my mind, because the amount of us that are just so restricted purely by our social anxiety, especially nowadays, right, where the only form of social interactions people have is social media. Yeah, you get the point. It's very easy for us to get anxious and almost introverted, right? It's like we are putting ourselves in the exact environments that are almost forcing us to be introverted, right? I totally get that. However, what you need to be aware of is that for you to truly become the best version of yourself, regardless what realm it could may be, right? Whether if you want to improve at the gym, whether if you want to learn something new, whether if you want to do whatever you want to do, talking to people is like the inevitable part, right? And if you're going to struggle with that, you're going to have a really, really hard time. And the thing that you need to realize is that a man cannot grow beyond how he sees himself. if you still see yourself in the back of your mind as an anxious person, right? And every time you're gonna walk up to somebody, start a conversation, you're gonna get these anxious thoughts in the back of your mind, right? Guess what's gonna happen? That's exactly what's going to happen, you know? I really like to think of it in a way that the scenarios that your mind imagines as possibilities before you walk up to the person is exactly what's going to happen the longer you wait. What I mean by this is, let's say you want to walk up to a girl at the gym, right? You found this girl, you think she's pretty cute, you just want to grab her Instagram, right? Nothing out of the ordinary. It's a matter of one question and maybe 2 sentences. Yet what does your brain do as you're about to walk up to that person? It's gonna start fucking panicking. It's gonna start like shitting itself, right? You ever watched Inside Out 2 with that like orange character? I don't know the names, right? But it's the exact same thing. That motherfucker starts to take control over the whole brain, right? And what happens in that moment is your mind is imagining every possible way you could mess this shit up. I do this all the time. At least in the past, I used to do that a lot, right? Where I would get these thoughts of, oh, what if I stutter? What if I trip on my way walking up towards them, right? And these thoughts used to corrupt my way of thinking, right? But the funny thing is, what happened most of the time is the longer I waited for the right moment, which turns out never happens anyways, right? The worse I actually ended up talking. You know, it's like I would imagine myself like trying my hardest not to stutter, but when I walk up to the girl, I stutter. It's the exact same thing with anything else. Of course, it's not a guarantee, right? If you're gonna imagine yourself like tripping on the way there, it's not like you're obviously going to trip. But when you're overthinking about something, that's when you're gonna do it. Our minds can't not think about certain things, you know? It's like, for the next 3 seconds, try not to think about, I don't even know, a red pen. Why did I start like that? 3, 2, 1. What's gonna happen? All your mind could think about was that damn red pen, because you are not your thoughts. You are not your brain. Your brain is an organ at the end of the day that kind of does its own thing, and you can't really control it. You don't really know what thought is gonna come out of your brain next. Therefore, taking the time to worry about those shitty thoughts to begin with is completely, at least in my opinion, unnecessary. It's a waste of your time. What you are better off doing is, as soon as you get the thought of walking up to somebody, literally just force your feet to walk towards them, right? And I know this sounds harsh. I know this sounds way harder than it actually is, but imagine that between you and the person you want to talk to, there's a bump, right? And the longer you're gonna wait for you to walk up to that person, this bump goes higher and higher and higher, and it starts to turn into a wall. This wall of anxiety and overthinking that won't let you pass through. That's why you gotta talk to people before you even get those negative thoughts, right? Because once you do and you start to indulge in them, think of that red motherfucker from Inside Out 2. It's gonna immediately take over, right? So you need to be very aware of that. But if you're not going to take care of how you see yourself in these situations, you're not gonna make any progress, right? A man can't grow beyond how he sees himself. This is as true as it can get, you know? I used to always see myself as a weak person, because ever since I was a kid, right, I was incredibly short. I was always the shortest guy in my class, almost the shortest kid. I just have zero muscle, right? I had no fighting experience, whatever. And I was always like a punching bag. I was a pushover, you know? I remember the bigger guys in primary school would always like, I would never get bullied physically, obviously, but I was kind of a target, you know what I mean? It's like you would get targeted here and there, right? So what do you think I did? Did I focus on the things that I can't control? That I just sit there and whine about how short I am for my entire life? Because I could do that. And I used to do that for a very long period of time. However, what I did instead is I focused on the things that mattered. I focused on the things that I actually can control. Therefore, that's how I started to accelerate my progress. You know, this is how I finally got myself to go to the gym. This is how I finally started to train boxing, started to become more fit overall. And now I have a physique that I'm genuinely proud of. And knowing the amount of trials and tribulations that I went through to build this physique, it has given me an extreme amount of confidence to my name. And you know, there's a difference in between arrogance and confidence, right? You got to be aware of that as well. But once you start to actually put yourself through some difficult shit, instead of just sitting in your own tiny little bubble, that's when you make the most growth. That's when you start to look back at how far you've gone through in your journey of life. And even though your journey might not be that long, because guess what? I'm still 17. My life barely started. It'll still be significant. I really like to say that high school is like a tutorial, right? Because I'm graduating high school in a bit, and turning into an adult is kind of spooking me in a way. Like, I know it's gonna be really fucking fun, but at the same time, I was teenage thoughts. You know what I'm talking about, right? But yeah, I really hope that this video helped you out. And if you want to talk to me directly, whilst hanging around a community that actually understands your struggles and experiences, please join the Discord server. I can almost assure you that you won't find a community like mine anywhere else on the planet, right? You can try any of the paid communities, any of the free communities. You can try joining Hamza's bullshit. You can try the real world, all of that. My place will truly do what's best for you. Assuming you can relate to the person that I am, which if you made it to this point of the video, it's a guarantee, right? If you made it all the way here, I know. Comment the word basketball. I bought this foam basketball online. It's like pretty fucking fun to dribble in my room. I'm a human at the end of the day, right? I'm not just trying to, like, I could be professional and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm still a human. And I'm doing this for you and for you only. So if you're down with that, if you're cool with that, you can click all the links, blah, blah, blah. You can check out these videos if you want to. I really recommend you subscribe as well, because it means a lot to me. And hopefully, I'll see you in the next video. So keep working, brother, and take care.